You're tuned in to Pyrocryptic X News, daily crypto coverage on the networks that matter. XRP, XLM, XDC, and many others. Let's get into it.
Pyrocryptic X News here. And right now, the crypto markets are pretty electrifying.
Definitely. Lots of movement.
Yeah, XRP ETF whispers are swirling everywhere, it seems, while Hedera is making some, well, concrete leaps in bringing real-world assets onto the blockchain.
RWA is a big theme.
It is. Look, you're busy, so we're cutting straight to the insights that matter for your portfolio today, April 30th, 2025.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's tackle this XRP ETF buzz head-on. Rumors really ignited yesterday about a potential ProShares XRP ETF launch. Today, actually. Caused quite a stir.
It did, but Bloomberg's ETF analyst James Seifert was quick to jump in. He clarified that no such launch date is confirmed.
Right, so where did that come from? Seems it stemmed from ProShares' initial filing. That was back on April 15th, wasn't it?
Exactly. And ProShares themselves have now, stated pretty unequivocally they have no XRP ETF scheduled for today. No current updates.
Okay, so what's particularly interesting to unpack here then is the type of filing.
Yes, because any XRP ETF from them being discussed right now would likely be futures-based. That's a really crucial distinction.
Different from a spot ETF, which would actually hold XRP.
Precisely. And we already have a futures product out there, the 2PM2X long XRP ETF, XXRP.
So the real anticipation, the big prize, lies with potential U.S. spot XRP ETFs. We're talking Grayscale, Bitwise, Franklin Templeton.
Wisdom Tree, 21 shares.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big players. But regulatory approval still seems some way off. Likely not before October in the U.S., I'd guess.
Which makes the global landscape quite a stark contrast, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Brazil's Hashdex actually launched the world's first spot XRP ETF just last week, trading as XRP H11.
And that one's heavily concentrated in XRP, like 95%.
Yep, 95% XRP, and it tracks the NASDAQ XRP index. Of course, the big shadow hanging over U.S. spot ETFs is still the SEC legal battle with Ripple.
That's the headwind, although there were some indications of possible settlement talks, weren't there?
There were whispers, yes. But the market's reaction to all this ETF speculation is quite telling, regardless of the uncertainty.
How so?
Well, despite the U.S. confusion, XRP has shown significant strength. It's trading around, what, $2.30 right now?
Yeah, around there. And the market cap surged, too, up to $133.5 billion, plus a big jump in trading volume, up 28%.
And it's worth noting, one source did indicate SEC clearance for ProShares to launch XRP futures ETFs today. That seems, well, directly at odds with what ProShares themselves are saying.
Interesting. That divergence just highlights how dynamic and sometimes confusing this space can be.
Absolutely.
So indeed, the anticipation around these potential ProShares XRP futures ETFs, including those leveraged and inverse options, like the ultra, the short, the ultra short.
All supposedly launching today, according to some.
Right. That anticipation seems to be a key driver in the recent price appreciation.
And you've also got the CME Group planning to add XRP futures to its U.S. derivatives exchange next month. That adds to the positive sentiment.
But veteran market analyst John Squire, he believes the real catalyst will be the spot ETF approval, right?
He does. He's pointing to Grayscale's looming spot ETF deadline, May 22nd, as a really critical date to watch.
Okay. And underneath all this speculation.
What really stands out is the underlying conviction you're seeing. Reports indicate significant accumulation by large holders, whales as they're called.
Suggesting strong belief in the long-term potential.
Exactly. The data shows a rise in addresses holding, substantial amounts, 10,000 XRP or more. Specifically, those between 10 million and 100 million XRP have increased since April 1st.
And the really big holders.
Addresses with over 1 billion XRP now control a larger slice of the pie, 39.4% of the supply, up from about 37.7% in late March. It's a consolidation.
Wow. Okay, turning to the charts, technical analysis, XRP broke out of a pattern.
Yeah, bullish falling wedge pattern. Some analysts see that as a signal for a potential pretty big rally, maybe 55%, targeting around $3.63.
And holding above the 50-day EMA is key for that.
Considered crucial, yes, for validating that upward path. Plus, you have the resolution, or partial resolution, of the SEC lawsuit. That reduced $50 million fine provided some much-needed regulatory clarity.
And then there are those persistent rumors, unconfirmed of course, about Swift integration or the Fed exploring Ripple's network.
Those always circulate. But if you connect the dots, Ripple's recent acquisition of Hidden Road is also pretty significant.
Why is that?
Their plan is to migrate post-trade operations onto the XRP ledger. It shows ambition beyond just the crypto asset itself. using the underlying tech.
So analyst John Squire's near-term target of $3.63 seems to tie into all this, technicals and fundamentals converging.
It seems plausible based on that confluence. Looking further out, though, some analysts are getting really optimistic, very long-term valuations.
Gotcha. Always take long-term predictions with a grain of salt, but what do they say?
Well, EGRAG, for instance, sees a potential $27 by 2026, but that's contingent on ETF approval. Sistine Research is looking way out to 2030, forecasting maybe $33 to $50.
And Standard Chartered?
They have a more near-term projection, $8 by 2026.
Okay. And just to ground us, the price was around $2.31 a couple of days ago, a significant climb over the last few weeks.
Definitely. And Paul Howard from Winston noted, XRP seems to be decoupling a bit from Bitcoin, moving more on its own fundamentals. He expects continued growth driven by payments and settlements,
which pushed the market cap to $135 billion with that huge surge in daily volume we mentioned.
170% surge, yeah. Quite remarkable.
Okay, let's shift gears. Hedera, HBAR. Its price has also been showing some upward momentum, hasn't it? Another falling wedge pattern forming.
That's right. Similar pattern, and like with XRP, a break above that upper resistance line is generally seen as bullish.
What's making Hedera particularly compelling right now, though? Is it the tokeny integration?
I think that's a huge piece of it, yes. Tokeny solutions. They provide infrastructure used by some major financial institutions, ABN AMRO, Credit Agricole, BNP Paribas.
Big names.
Big names. And Tokeny already tokenized over $28 billion in assets using their platform. So this integration is a significant step for Hedera.
How so? What does it enable?
It could allow these institutions to bring assets onto the Hedera network much more efficiently. We're talking potentially weeks using white label solutions and APIs. The key is Tokeny's existing ties to traditional finance.
Right, bridging that gap. And we're seeing activity pick up on the Hedera network itself.
Definitely. Stablecoin market cap on Hedera jumped nearly 40% in just the past week. It's over $113 million now.
Wow. Compared to what, at the start of the year?
To $26 million back in January. So that's a substantial increase, often indicating growing real-world use.
And technically, HBAR peaked earlier this year, fell back, but now?
Yeah, it peaked around 40 cents, bottomed out mid-April, but it's since climbed back above its 50-day EMA. And it formed a small inverse head and shoulders pattern, another potentially bullish sign.
Okay, other indicators looking positive too.
Seems so. The awesome oscillator has been positive for 4 straight days. The BB trend indicator is rising. These suggest momentum could continue, maybe targeting around 0.2593 based on Fibonacci levels.
Interesting. And we've also seen some anecdotal reports filtering through, like that Reddit mention.
Yeah, someone mentioned a family member at a bank's digital asset division saying they're onboarding HBAR for day-to-day operations, alongside XRP, XLM, and XDC, interestingly.
That real-world adoption story is always crucial, isn't it?
It is. And you see these discussions online, like on Reddit, comparing HBR to XDC or XRP. Different strengths, different use cases, payments versus tokenization.
And the common advice seems to be?
Diversification, often. People point to HBR's energy efficiency, low fees, but then debate its decentralization model, the council governance.
Right. And one Redditor even suggested XDC might have an edge in tokenization currently.
Which brings us nicely to XDC Network. They've just announced a pretty significant development for utility.
Oh, yeah. What's up?
An XDC to fiat off-ramp. It's live now on XDC Cash, powered by Encryptus.
Okay, so easier to get cash out from XDC.
Exactly. Convert XDC into local currencies, other payment methods across more than 100 countries.
That sounds like a major step for practical usability. Encryptus is offering good rates.
Reportedly, competitive rates, especially in emerging markets. Options include bank transfers, gift cards, e-wallets, mobile top-ups, lots of flexibility.
And this comes after their big network upgrade, XDC 2.0.
Yes, which brought that super fast transaction finality, just 3 to 4 seconds. Huge for reliability and speed in real-world apps.
Plus, XDC network is ISO 2022 compliant, right? That helps with
interoperability. Talking the same language as traditional financial infrastructure makes adoption by banks and institutions potentially much easier.
And the plan is to bake these off-ramps directly into wallets and dApps.
That's the idea. Plus, Encryptus is also working on a global on-ramp for about 22 countries in Asia, Africa, LATAM, making it easier to buy XDC too.
Interesting. They're even exploring support for USDA, Cardano's stablecoin.
Yeah, looking at integrating it across different platforms. Shows ambition for broader ecosystem collaboration.
Okay, great. Finally, let's briefly touch on Stellar XLM price action there, showing potential.
Yes, potential for a bullish reversal. It broke free from a long-term downtrend and is now sort of consolidating within an uptrend.
Facing some resistance, though.
Key resistance is around that $37 to 31-cent mark. Technical analysis suggests if it can decisively break above $32, that could trigger a bigger rally, maybe towards the $56 highs from Q4 last year.
And XLM has actually outperformed the broader market recently.
It has. Its 24-hour trading volume also saw a good bump. Significant activity on Coinbase. Could be part of that growing appetite for altcoins we mentioned, maybe early signs of alt-season capital rotation.
And Stellar's fundamentals support a potential rally.
Well, its core design is for low-cost, efficient cross-border payments. It also has native smart contracts, good for tokenization, plus established partnerships like Stellar 8 Assist and that blockchain money market fund in the U.S.
So key levels to watch. Support around $24.27.
Yeah, and that critical resistance at 31.30 at 32 cents. Upside target, potentially 56 cents if it breaks through.
Okay. And just for context, where are the majors? Bitcoin was around 94K and 95K recently.
Yeah, in that range. Ethereum around a 1,798K, give or take.
And briefly, that wider political context, President Trump's first 100 days saw some notable pro-crypto moves.
Quite a few, yeah. The Obrist pardon, executive orders on CBDCs and mining, setting up a Bitcoin reserve. Paul Atkins confirmed as SEC chair, overturning that IRS broker rule. Several things signaling a potentially friendlier stance.
Okay, so wrapping up for today, April 30th, 2025. The crypto markets are clearly showing a lot of dynamism, potential shifts happening.
Definitely. The XRP ETF narrative is still a major focus, even with the launch day confusion. Hedera is making tangible progress on RWAs.
XDC is boosting accessibility with that crucial fiat off-ramp, and Stellar showing promising signs of a bullish comeback.
Lots to track.
Absolutely. Remember, the information we've shared today is just a snapshot based on the latest data and analysis we have. This landscape changes incredibly fast.
So staying informed, thinking critically, those are your best assets.
Couldn't agree more. This is Pyrocryptic X News, delivering your concise crypto market intelligence. Stay informed, stay curious, and we'll be back with more crucial updates.
That's it for today on Pyrocryptic X News. Stay sharp, stay informed, and catch the next drop right here.